Right, good evening all. We are live. Frosty the No Man was clearly not a very jolly soul. And instead of pulling the trigger on Article 16, he has gone and pulled the trigger on himself, which I'm glad about because this will help defrost our relationship with the EU. The oven-ready deal was never actually ready, but at least it is now defrosted. Or as the French have said, when the temperature turned up, then frost melted away. Okay, enough. I've got no more. But quite clearly, Tweedledum and Tweedledee have fallen out with each other, and Tweedledum, well, has walked off in a sulk, leaving Boris Johnson all on his own at Christmas. So, why did Lord Frost go? Was it Plan B? And Boris Johnson invoking Plan B, as he said? Was it over tax issues and wanting the UK to be a low tax country in order to take advantage of Brexit and having fundamental differences there? Was it that it was just getting far too difficult for him over the Article 16 issue, which we'll come on to, pressure being applied from the states, and also the knowledge that as we get into the new year, the trade barriers are going to go up even harder because we will be coming out of some of the final grace periods. Which was it? Well, it was likely all of those, but the common factor behind it is very clearly that Lord Frost has lost faith in Boris Johnson. Their tight partnership of those two jokers together, obviously there's been a rift of loyalty, because even though it came as a surprise to many people, and you can see this from leaks in the Steve Baker's WhatsApp group, they weren't expecting it, but nevertheless, if he was planning to do this in the new year, but then drops it in now, he really wanted to stick the knife in right when it was a miserable week for Boris Johnson. So I think that his main motivation would have been because it is related to the tax thing. He had a certain model in his mind of why they were going to do Brexit, why they were going to play hardball, not just with the EU and Ireland and even the US if they needed to. It was to become that Singapore on Thames. It was to have lots of deregulation. It was to cut back on all the spending. And Boris Johnson probably thought that that's the way to lose red wall seats. And he wanted to still keep having more money available in order to and I think it was just that fundamental rift, as well as it getting hard, where he just decided, well, I'm a lord now. I could just take the monies from there and be gone with all of this because it's all falling apart. This is a ship. I'm a rat. Off I go. And he follows the likes of David Davis, Brexit Secretary David Davis, who screwed up early on, Dominic Raab, and a host of others that I can't remember now, hard Brexiteers all that can't handle it. But anyway, the question then became, what does that mean? What does that mean for going into the new year? Who's going to tidy all of this up? What are the challenges that they'd have to take on? And lots of people were thinking it would have to be another hard Brexiteer to step into that place and to carry it forward with all the nuttiness of their predecessors. And so Ian Duncan Smith was lined up in the minds of many as someone to step forward and take it. I'm so glad it wasn't him, because he's just another complete and utter loony. But apparently Boris Johnson wants to get him onto the front bench. But thank God it's not. And it's going to Liz Truss, which is an interesting option. So rather than bring forward a nutty MP, or rather than bring forward one of Lord Frost's team and make them a lord as well in order to get them into the cabinet, they've just decided to expand Liz Truss's brief as Foreign Secretary to include this. And for me, that's a major relief, actually, as far as you can have reliefs with the Boris Johnson government, because if you roll it into the Foreign Secretary's job, then it means that that role is not full-time on going to war with the EU and specifically the Commission. But also, if it's part of the Foreign Secretary's brief, they are going to have to balance it off against their other demands, like how they work with other countries in the world, including America. America was never part of David Frost's brief, but it's going to be very much Liz Truss's. And so I think that's good, because it very much dilutes the poison of the aggressive Brexit Secretary brief into the wider understanding of, oh, where are we in the world now? Do we want to be dicks, or do we maybe want to say, perhaps we need to rebuild this country as a responsible and collaborative one? And for me, this is most important, of course, because science. We have at the moment a situation whereby we are signed up to Horizon Europe, but it's not fully signed off yet. And so we've just had this year on the Horizon Europe programme with no money coming in. That's meant dozens of research teams have actually been working on Horizon, a certain strand of Horizon Europe projects, but not got any money. So the government's had to underwrite that. But in the first year, it doesn't make too much of a difference with EU science programs, because they're usually much, much smaller as they're in the first year in terms of grants given out, yada, yada, because things are ramping up. But as we get into next year, if this goes on for too long, that we're not completed and have full access to start going on the science program because of the block over Article 16 and the Northern Ireland Protocol, then that just means things get more and more tense, more and more damage is being done, and the government is more and more likely to pull out randomly out of stupidity, saying it's not worth our while anymore. And we've even had our science minister, George Freeman, pose ridiculously about if the EU stands in our way on this. Yeah, he really said that. If the EU stands in our way in terms of access, then we'll make our own program that's its equal or even better, he said. Like as if you can do from one country a global multinational program overnight that's going to rival a 30-nation, decades-old program. God. But anyway, that's where it was balancing until recently. But now the departure of Frost has thrown this all up in the air, and there's some interesting pressures here. The hard right are going to want to see Article 16 triggered. They're going to want the full posturing. They don't care about what's popular with the public, as you can see over coronavirus restrictions. They're just trying to hardcore drive it from their own angle anyway. So you've got that pressure, but apparently there has been pressure on our Treasury from the US that if we were to trigger Article 16, we could even face sanctions from the US. That has been reported in the Irish press. And so whoever takes up this brief, and it's Liz Truss now, is going to have to deal with that dynamic. Do you want to go the full kamikaze for the right of your party, the right wing of your party? Do you want to do the full sovereignty spiel, take it all on, and then have sanctions from the US, a trade war with the EU, cut out of the science program, etc., etc., etc.? Or do you want to say, hey, maybe the protocol can work with the tweaks suggested by the EU, and we're going to accept those, and the DUP is just going to have to put the gimp balls in their mouth and take it because they're idiots anyway? My personal preference would be the latter, but you never know with this government because it's run by Boris F. Johnson. And it's an interesting point that Dominic Cummings himself said in one of his recent Substacks that the original plan, or the perfect idea, would be to trigger Article 16 and go hard against the EU. But he doesn't think that's a good idea. So Mr. Nutcase, Brexit nutcase himself, is now saying, looking at the situation, crowing about sovereignty and trying to trigger Article 16 at the moment would actually be pretty stupid, because you don't have the resources in government to do it and do it well. You'd be caught out. But this is what we're going to be looking at going into the new year. And I think one of the major pressure points on this, apart from the US and apart from the potential trade war, is actually going to be the science. Because if we get cut out of that science program, the whole narrative of Boris Johnson government about how we are going to be high tech and green agenda and cutting edge for science and tech and leading the world and all of that, it just puts you flat on your face if you take away the cutting edge of your economy and you actually start seeing your own scientists leave, not being able to attract talent in, as we've already seen with the stupid Nobel Prize visa stream. But also you would start seeing your universities and research centres setting up campuses on European soil in order to maintain a role in those grants. So Frost is out, and God, good riddance as well. He is not a very bright man, and far too antagonistic and far too easy to read. I don't think Liz Truss is very bright, but I don't think she's got the same lobotomized ox mentality that angry potato Lord Frost has. So let's see where it goes from here. But Boris Johnson has had a really, really bad week and is going to go into next year particularly weak. I said in one of my previous videos recently that he's a dead man walking, and he really is. And if you see some of the dynamics going on within the Conservative Party, he doesn't have the public, he doesn't have his own party. It's just a question of when, how, and who is going to take over now, I would say. Okay, that's it from me. Catch you later. Looking forward to the week.